Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 103, coming at you on this beautiful Thursday afternoon from the Valley. And boy, is it hot out here as summer, I think, officially begins tomorrow. But this is episode 103 for your weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you tune into podcasts with the videos on YouTube. And we have some fights that have been announced. We will recap this week's Ultimate Fighter episode, BKFC and Dirty Boxing from last weekend, as well as PFL previewing tomorrow's action, UFC Fight Night Atlanta and Baku for some early morning Saturday UFC action. Love to wake up, get some coffee, and get the day rocking with some violence. But we're going to jump right in. We got Jared Cannonier, Michael Venom Page, UFC 319. That card is getting completely built out, and it is stacked. I have planned on going. The ticket prices just are very steep, so to be determined. But that's a great fight. And this one I'm really excited for. We get King Green and Carlos Diego Fajeda. And you want to speak about violence? Well, Edson Barboza is pure violence taking on Drakkar Klose here out of Phoenix. The young stud Peyton Talbot taking on Felipe Lima at UFC 317 on International Fight Week. And then on July 26th in Abu Dhabi, we have Movsar Evloev taking on Aaron Pico. So he will not be fighting Volkanovski. He'll have to get another victory. And then we have Saeed Nurmagomedov taking on Bryce Mitchell, who's moving down to the bantamweight division. On August 2nd, we have Matush Renbecki taking on Chris Duncan. And the young stud Austin Bashi taking on Francis Marshall, which should be a great scrap. On August 9th, we have Gene Matsumoto taking on Miles Johns. And then at the end of August in Shanghai, Waldo Cortez Acosta stepping up to the big leagues, facing off against Sergey Pavlovich. Elsewhere in rostered news, two-time Ultimate Fighter champion Brad Katona released from the UFC. He's had an up-and-down career, just wasn't able to stick with his performances. So he will probably go back to Brave. But we had Ultimate Fighter episode 4 this past weekend. Daniel Cormier had hinted about tuning in because something will happen for the first time. Well, that was because Chael Sonnen's fighter was going to be way overweight. And he ended up paying the opponent $2,500 per pound for each pound that he missed, which I think was about 5 pounds, maybe 4.5. Whereas Cormier's fighter could have just taken a move to the next round without accepting the fight. He could have taken the forfeit. And he ended up winning the fight, getting pretty much dominated on the feet in round 1. But they gave him a 10-8 round 2. He ended up landing a nasty elbow at the end of round 1 that cut him wide open. There was blood everywhere. He got a body triangle in, but didn't do a lot offensively with it, so I didn't really think it warranted a 10-8. But it didn't get a chance to go to the third. He probably would have won the third anyways. But the Ultimate Fighter keeps on trucking. And then this past week, we had some interesting things on the weekend. Some things I did tune into. We had Dirty Boxing 2 on YouTube. Jairzinho Rosenstrike in the main event got a second-round knockout. He's going to fight for the title next against a guy named Wolf. We had Sadio Cub Kakramanov with a big win over Alex Caceres in a fun fight where Alex struggled to make weight. He wanted to catch weight. Sadio Cub did not want to do that as he's the smaller fighter. You could see he looked a lot smaller in there. But there was some fun striking exchanges in that bout. I did think Sadio Cub won, but it was a very close fight. Brutal loss for Caceres, especially if he plans on coming back to the UFC. We also had some other ex-UFCers. Jessie Rose Clark looking good. She called out Paige Van Zant, who was ringside. And then Phil Haas continuing just to strike bad luck. Had a disqualification in his bout due to an eye poke. And then Francisco Trinaldo with a round 1 TKO over Eric Moon, another ex-UFCer. Then we had BKFC in Connecticut. Jorgen De Castro got knocked out in the first round. Parker Porter in the main event got a first-round knockout. And Randy Costa with a round 1 TKO as well. Those are some fun events. But this weekend, BKFC is back. We have BKFC 76 in Fort Worth, Texas. Ex-UFC veteran Andre Arlovsky is taking on Josh Copeland. And Jessica I is taking on Maria Agapova. And then last weekend, we had the PFL welterweights and featherweights. The headliner was the main event as Thad Jean pulled off a very close split decision over Jason Jackson. I actually had Jackson winning the fight, but it was a close dogfight. I wish it could have been 5 rounds. I do feel like the PFL is trying to build Thad Jean, a.k.a. the Silverback, as one of their new stars. Maybe wanted to give him the win regardless. But he showed a lot of potential in that fight. Jason Jackson's no slouch. We had Jesus Pinedo with a round 1 knockout over Gabriel Braga. Slight work for the PFL champion. Logan Storley wrestled a decision against Masayuki Kikikuri. And then we had Movlid Kabulyayev with a unanimous decision over Tae Kyun Kim. We had Adam Borix with the majority decision over Jeremy Kennedy. And Magomed Umolatov with a round 1 knockout over Anthony Ivy, who should still be in the tournament, but he missed weight in the original quarterfinals. So, the card was pretty meh, but the main event definitely delivered. And that sets us up for tomorrow. We have the lightweights and bantamweights and women's flyweights in Wichita, Kansas. Prelims at ESPN Plus at 2 p.m. Main card 5:30 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. The headliner, newly signed Kevin Lee taking on Godzi Rabanadov. Big underdog there. I think it'll be a solid fight. We can really see how good Godzi is. We have Liz Carmouche and Alora Dana. University of Wyoming, shout out Cowboys. Archie Colgan taking on Mansur Barnui. Jake Hadley and Marceli Alves. That should be an awesome fight. Brett Primus and Alfie Davis. Magomed Magomedov and Sarvojan Kamidov. Another Wyoming alum coming back, Mike Hamill and Dara Kelly. I'm actually more excited about this weekend's slate of cards for the PFL, so we'll see if it delivers. But let's talk about UFC Fight Night Atlanta. I went 6-5-1 on my picks. Tough night in the office. Overall, that's 620 wins, 318 losses, 9 no contests or draws at bows and TKOs. On the year, 136 wins, 77 losses, 2 no contests or draws. To recap Atlanta, the fans did show up pretty well. Midway through the prelims, they started filling in. And the ones that got there early definitely got some good action. But from there was the weird no contest, some measured decisions where fighters weren't super forward and forthcoming. But there was some solid showcases of MMA talent by the big names. I thought there would be more violence with some of the matchups, but that wasn't the case. It seemed like a lot of people were fighting to not lose versus put on big displays for the fans and take some risks. I'm going to recap the fight night, a 5 out of 10. And the guy that's making all the storylines, a fight we did not break down because I figured it would go this way, Malcolm Wellmaker with a round 1 knockout over Chris Moutinho. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Malcolm. And what a story he put down on the Ariel Helwani show this week, talking about getting into the union, having a rough pass through high school and college, being a welder, quitting his job after the bonus, now a full-time fighter. Really love to hear the fighter stories. That's what it's all about. That's why I'm a huge fan of the UFC. But let's kick this off in the prelims. We had Phil Rowe with a round 3 technical knockout over Ange Loosa, a fight I did get wrong, but I'm not surprised. And Phil started pretty active as a striker, as you would expect, but Ange got a beautiful blast double leg early in the fight, and he was able to control Rowe for the rest of round 1 without being very offensive, though. And then in round 2, both men landed some combos, but Phil was able to defend and the takedown attempts of Ange and landed some nice shots from distance. And although he was taken down again, he got right back up, which was huge in this fight because you could see Rowe kind of building that confidence in him to let his hands fly. And then once things got a little bit reckless, Ange landed a big shot that rocked Phil. He was able to be defensive in his guard as a longer fighter to make it to round 3. And it seemed like potentially Phil could even be down 2-0 going into round 3. But Phil needed to get that finish, and he just closed the distance and was all over Ange early. Phil battled back up and started throwing some heavy shots. Ange was pretty gassed at that point, both fighters were. And it seemed like Ange was just trying to play defense. But after some vicious knees in the clinch and a ton of hooks, Phil Rowe getting another finish. He has a 100% finish rate in his pro career. Statistically, Ange landed 130 total strikes, 65 of them significant. He went 3 for 7 in takedowns, a knockdown, and 6 minutes and 13 seconds of control time. Phil landed 103 total strikes, 85 of them significant with the knockdown. So now Phil ends that 2-fight losing streak. He starts a new winning streak. Ange extends his losing streak to 2. He's 1-2-1 since 2023. Massive win for Phil, potentially fighting for his roster spot. Said on Ariel Helwani, he's been trying to get fights. It wasn't working for him. But I would love to see Phil take on Themba Garimbo. I think that would be an awesome scrap. And for Ange, how about Trevin Giles? Moving on, another young flyweight stud, Jose Ochoa with a round 2 knockout over Cody Durden. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Jose. Another fight I got wrong, but holy cow, did Jose come out swinging as you would expect. He landed a big spinning back fist right at the start of the fight. And then Cody went and got a takedown, but he couldn't keep Jose down. Ochoa just kept firing away and landing a ton of volume. But Cody did land a beautiful check hook counter, and then that led to another takedown to go into round 2. So it was a pretty evenly fought first round. But then round 2, Jose sat him down right away and got a finish, which is pretty insane after getting rocked at the end of round 2. But Jose showcased his serious power, especially in the flyweight division. He does remind me of the young Josh Van. I wouldn't say as technical of a boxer, but he's super confident right now. He's going to be a nightmare in the division. And for Cody, man, that's just a brutal loss. His hopes in the division, he's kind of going to be a top 15 gatekeeper now. You hate to see it. But statistically, Cody landed 12 total strikes, 9 of them significant. He went 2 for 4 in takedown attempts with 1 minute and 42 seconds of control time. And Jose landed 52 total strikes, 30 of them significant with a knockdown. So Jose gets his first win in the UFC, 1-1, and Cody extends his losing streak to 2. He is 3-4 since 2023. And where do these guys go next? I think Cody and Rafael Filho would be a good scrap. And for Jose, I don't think we need to rush him up the rankings by any means. So I'd like to see him fight Suma Derry. And then moving on, still in the prelims, 2 Ultimate Fighter champions, Michael Chiesa with unanimous decision over Court McGee. And you would almost expect, with both of these men having similar styles, it would be a tit-for-tat fight. I did think both guys would be a little bit more aggressive. And I would have actually liked to see Michael be the aggressor. But, he understands, like the rest of us, how tough Court is. And you don't want to put yourself in a bad spot. He took what he was given. He had a well-rounded attack. And he was a striker for 15 minutes. But Court did try to control the center of the octagon for a majority of the fight. But Chiesa was very bouncy with the striking in and out with more like 2-shot combos. But every time Chiesa would try to close distance, McGee would fire off a combo, trying to land his big right hand versus a southpaw in Chiesa. But Chiesa had much better footwork. Again, nice and bouncy, was hard to hit for McGee. The biggest damage in the fight was actually a cut that Court had on his head from a clash of heads early in round 1. And I did expect to see more kicks from Michael, especially but it definitely was a filling out process in this fight. So I gave round 1 to Micahel for having a slight advantage in shots landed and strictly a boxing round, but it was almost identical. So round 2, Chiesa took a big shot down low, but the exchanges were Micahel landing a shot at a time and Court kind of whiffing with some bigger shots. Again, I would have liked to see Micahel maybe follow up some of those shots with some bigger combos, 5-6 strikes. But both men, for the most part, easily were able to shrug off any takedown attempts that were given, and they were able to get out of each other's clinch up against the cage. But going into round 3, a lot of the same. I had it 30-27 Chiesa. I felt like Court needed to go for it a little bit, and I figured by round 3 both men would have let it fly, but they did not. The best shots were probably the landed knees from Chiesa in the clinch in this fight. Statistically, Micahel landed 81 total strikes, 72 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts with 1 minute and 32 seconds of control time. Court landed 51 total strikes, 39 of them significant. He was 0 for 6 in takedown attempts with 45 seconds of control time. And although there was takedown attempts, they weren't full out given. Both guys know each other are good in the grappling department. But hey, Micahel extends his winning streak to 3. He's 3-1 since 2023. And Court starts a new losing streak. He's 1-3 since 2023. I thought there may be a potential for retirement here, but it seems like Micahel on his winning streak wants to keep going, and Court has not announced anything. He wants to finish out his contract. It seems like he has some fights on his contract. So I'm going to say let's book Micahel and Andres Gustafsson, who recently got a win as well. And for Court, a showdown with Preston Parsons is the fight to make. So again, early violence, great job by Phil Rowe, Jose Ochoa, Michael Chiesa fight, pretty tit for tat. Then we had this circumstance where Paul Craig and Rodolfo Bellato go to a no contest. And this one was just one of the weirder things. You've seen it probably go viral on socials. I mean, Paul, a veteran with his back against the wall in the UFC, he was pretty patient to start this fight. Rodolfo was stalking him down, had him up against the cage, and Bellato's aggressiveness, Paul really needed to land something and not just let Rodolfo walk straight forward at him. He did land some big body kicks to Paul and tried for takedowns, but no luck. And then with a minute left, Bellato reversed Craig's takedown attempt and just laid on him. Paul definitely accepted that. He was flat on his back. But then Paul, while he had Bellato down, he had one knee down, landed a nasty illegal up kick right to the face. And typically in these instances, ideally Bellato wouldn't have, in my opinion, faked being knocked out, and they would have continued the fight and would have taken a point for Craig for having that illegal up kick. I believe it was last week we saw an illegal up kick and the fight continued on. But Bellato, when he got hit, seemed to look at the judge, then laid down, act like he's knocked out, didn't know where he was. It was a very weird scene. I'm not sure why Bellato would act like he's being knocked out. Maybe he just figured he could get the end of the fight and get the victory. It was very delayed. There is an opportunity where a fighter could get, a delayed knockout, but it seemed like in slow-mo, his instant reaction from the up kick, then all of a sudden you're knocked out. That math isn't mathing, and I think a lot of people are picking that side as well. So very weird way to finish the prelims. But statistically, Paul landed 40 total strikes, 17 of them significant. He was 0 for 6 in takedown attempts. And Rodolfo landed 16 total strikes, 10 of them significant. He had 1 takedown and 55 seconds of control time. So Paul now still on a 3-fight losing streak. He's 1-4-1 since 2023. And it seems like he said this is his last fight on his contract. And if the UFC doesn't extend him, he'll probably retire. And Rodolfo now is 2-0-2 in the UFC. Definitely has had a weird go in the UFC, not kind of the record that you're looking for when you're looking to get paid as you enter your prime. But how to book these guys, what's happened in this fight I don't think is going to make anyone happy. So I kind of expect them to get thrown to the wolves a little bit. So how about Rodolfo versus Navajo Sterling? And Paul versus Oumar C if the UFC does extend him. which sets us up for the main card, where he had Alonzo Menifield with unanimous decision over Oumar C as a big underdog, a fight I did get wrong. I was very 50-50 on this fight, thought about taking Menifield, but taking some of the L's in the pay-per-view card the weekend before, I went conservative, and it bit me in the butt. But man, Oumar is such a long, lengthy striker for the division. You know, he had Alonzo on his back foot trying to evade the long jabs and kicks that he fired off. But then at the end of the round, Alonzo closed distance with the big, powerful combos. He was kind of loading up his big right hand. And when he landed some big hooks, he had C a little wobbly to end the round. I would assume C won that round. But it was pretty impossible to score. But based on volume and control, I would give it to C. Well, round 2, Oumar went for an early takedown attempt, and both men were up against the cage fighting for position. It's like where the defender's here trying to get underhooks, the other guys, both legs trying to get the hands locked behind the butt, and they just kind of stalled there. Oumar wouldn't give up the takedown attempt, and then with about a minute to go, they were able to separate. So I had it 2-0 Oumar going into round 3. And then round 3, both men definitely seemed to be tired out from that grappling round in round 2. They were very measured, throwing one strike at a time. Alonzo basically would fire a jab every time C tried to get into distance. He'd make him eat a nice left jab right to the mouth. And I guess that did enough to win the round, although there wasn't much action. You know, the judges ended up giving Alonzo round 1 and the decision. Although neither man did much to win it, I didn't agree with Alonzo winning round 1. So I actually scored the fight for C, but it was pretty uneventful. So statistically, Alonzo only landed 34 total strikes, 29 of them significant, so barely 10 shots around. And Oumar landed 37 total, 34 significant. He went 1 for 5 in takedown attempts. So Alonzo had great defense, and he had 4 minutes and 13 seconds of control time. So now Alonzo extends that winning streak to 2. He's 4-2-1 since 2023. And Oumar suffers his first loss, ends that 11-fight winning streak, and is 2-1 since 2023. So what's next for these guys? Like I said, if Paul Craig's still around, I would like to book Oumar and Paul Craig. And for Alonzo, how about Mingyang Zhang? Moving on, you would almost guarantee this would be absolutely box office violence, but Mansur Abdul Malik got a unanimous decision over Cody Brundage. And this fight was just both men respecting each other's power and skills. They were very patient and measured to start this fight as well. Really, the only moment in the first round was a front kick by Malik that barely missed. It kind of connected on the chin. Would have been lights out, I think, if it was fully landed. But the round was very tough to score, but I gave it to Brundage just by throwing more strikes in totality. And then round 2 was pretty chill and measured to start, as Cody was willing to wait to counter, and Mansur was just firing away leg kicks that seemed to be paying off. I was surprised that neither man looked to wrestle in this fight, but Mansur started to be willing to let some strikes flow in round 2. He definitely landed the bigger shots and got Brundage bloodied behind the ear. I'm not sure if it was cauliflower or what had caused that. But Mansur landed some big knees to the body to win the round with the winner-take-all third coming. You'd expect to see some more urgency from both men to go after it and try to get the win, especially Cody Brundage, who's kind of a journeyman at this point in his prime. But Mansur shot out of a cannonball right at the beginning of the round and landed a big flying knee. That definitely woke Cody up, and they just started to sit in the pocket and clang and bang with their heads down, especially Cody, who ended up missing a lot. But Mansur did land more shots in that wild exchange. You know, Cody was just winging shots with no technique at all. But then Mansur got Cody down after launching a knee at him, and Cody just covered up. They ended up calling the fight, which looked to be a TKO finish in round 3, an incidental clash of heads. So because the third round had started, they were actually able to go back to the scorecards, and they scored the first 2 rounds, which they called a Malik unanimous decision victory. And again, they were able to do that because the third round had started. But again, we have the no contest. We have a couple measured fights, then a terrible ending to a weird evening thus far in Atlanta, as Mansur was very confused what had happened when his hand was raised as a decision victor as well. Statistically, though, not a lot in this fight either. Mansur landed 25 total and significant strikes. Cody landing 30 total and significant. I would assume a place like Atlanta would get the fighters going. I'm not sure what was in the air that night. Regardless, Mansur stays undefeated. He's 9-0, 4-0 in the UFC. And Cody starts a new losing streak. He's 3-4-1 since 2023. He's been active with 8 fights in the past 2 years. So where do these gents go next? A lot of the divisions booked up. So how about Mansur and Andre Muniz? I think that would be a fun fight. And for Cody, how about Andre Petroski, who also lost last weekend? Then we get Cody Garbrandt. You're like, okay, we should at least see some action. But we had Raoni Barcelos with a unanimous decision over Cody Garbrandt. A fight I did get right, but I'm a little shocked. Cody came out showcasing his vintage speed, throwing a bunch of shots and landing some. I mean, he was super quick in and out. His 1-2 was on point. But then Raoni was just calm, cool, and collected. Ended up pressuring Cody back up against the cage. Cody was able to land another long combination. I mean, he was throwing like 6 straight combinations. And he sat Barcelos down. It looked like it could have been a slip. But Cody started showboating, and Barcelos landed some big overhand rights of his own and ended up cutting him with the knee in the clinch. But Cody showcased great takedown defense early, which would make you think he could get it done with his speed. And Cody was able to land a knee with just about a minute left, and it stumbled Barcelos as well. So a very eventful first round. You're excited for the fight. Well, round 2, Raoni kept stalking Cody down, landing nice lower leg kicks. And as the round wore on, Cody continued to defend takedowns. But I'm not sure why he wasn't more aggressive with his strikes and his long combinations, because he's a much quicker striker. But he seemed to kind of give up on his offense. Barcelos landed that big right hand again before the bell to put a stamp on the round. So I had it 1-1 with the winner takes all third. And then Cody, he was just trying to live off the counter strikes too much. He didn't start the offense and waited for Raoni to make the move. So Barcelos was just chopping that leg and throwing big, nice straight rights. And Cody had no head movement, not great defense per usual. But Raoni clamped down on a front headlock and eventually took Cody's back. And with about a minute left, somehow Cody was able to get back up and just started swinging away. But he was too zapped energy-wise to get his own offense the rest of the round to give himself a shot. So that's how Barcelos took the fight. But again, for a guy like Cody, who is a champion at 26 years old, has some nice wins on his record, you can't just live off counter-striking. You think you would evolve, especially how he started in round 1. A little bit of a head scratcher there. I'm sure he's looking back at the film and shaking his head himself. But statistically, Cody landed 45 total strikes, 28 of them significant. He was 0 for 7 in takedown attempts, a reversal, and 46 seconds of control time. And Raoni landed 43 total strikes, 37 of them significant. He only got 1 takedown in 11 attempts, so credit to Cody. But he also had 2 minutes and 26 seconds of control time. But basically another fight with about 10 strikes around. Regardless, Raoni extends his winning streak to 3. He's 3-2 since 2023. At the back half of his 30s, he has defeated the young Peyton Talbot. Now Cody Garbrandt, he's on a roll. And Cody extends that losing streak to 2. He is 2-2 since 2023. Not where you want to be in your prime as an ex-champion. But what's next? I know that Barcelos is on a roll right now, and he called for Rob Font in the middle of the top 15 rankings. I think what Rob's done lately, he deserves to fight higher in the rankings. So I'm going to say let's book a fight against Jonathan Martinez. And Cody, he's in a tough spot. I would like to see him get a striking heavy style fighter. So Charles Jourdain, who recently pulled out of his bout, I think that's must-see bantamweight television. But moving on, we had Edmen Shahbazyan with a unanimous decision over Andre Petroski. This wasn't the weekend before, it was this weekend. Another fight I got wrong. I figured if it went to decision, it would definitely be Petroski's night. But yeah, I didn't think this would have a high likelihood of going to the scorecards because either Edmen would box Andre up for a finish by round 2, or Andre was going to get multiple takedowns early and often and just exhaust Edmen for a possible submission. Well, none of that happened. The first round, it took Andre a half a round until he actually attempted a first takedown attempt, and it was well defended. And Edmen was just living off his jab. Anytime Andre tried to come in close, he gave him a knuckle sandwich, and, it worked great. The jabs that connected were actually pretty stiff, and it hurt Petroski, kind of buckled his legs a little bit. And then by round 3, Edmen had just slowly picked Petroski apart and wore him out and definitely took away any confidence he had in the grappling. Edmen did start to throw some combos, which led to a Petroski takedown in round 3, but Edmen got right back up. I mean, we're really starting to see Edmen evolve into a complete package, especially training with Eric Nixick. He's going to be a problem with his boxing skills. This was a beautiful win for him. Statistically, Edmen landed 58 total strikes, 53 of them significant, with a knockdown, and he was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. And Andre landed 34 total strikes and significant with 2 takedowns and 6 attempts. Great defense by Edmen. So now Edmen extends that winning streak to 2. He is 3-2 since 2023. And Andre ends that 3-fight winning streak. He starts a new losing streak. He's 4-3 since 2023. So what's next? Well, Cody Brundage and Andre Petroski is the fight to make, like I said earlier. And for Edmen, again, a lot of the divisions booked up. I would like him to see the winner of this weekend's Junyon Park and Ismail Nardiev fight. That's the one that I want to see. But then we had 2 former ex-champions in the co-main and main. My girl Rose Namajunas with a unanimous decision over Miranda Maverick. And I'll just say this much about Rose Namajunas. There's not a lot of polarizing women in women's MMA that makes you want to watch the UFC on the women's side. Rose has been one of those. She's had kind of a crazy last few years since she's been working with Pat Barry, in my opinion. But they had disclosed fighter purses in the card, and she's making $500,000 to show. I think it's well worth it. Again, she's the reason that I watch women's MMA. She's a big part of it. And in this fight, some people had picked Miranda, and I have no idea how they did that. But breaking this down, I mean, Rose came out early, great footwork and feints per usual. She was able to move in and out of range and land very precisely against Miranda, and she missed a lot of shots. Miranda was game. She's definitely the bigger fighter in the flyweight division, but Rose was definitely leading the dance and not letting Miranda rush her and go for takedowns. So I had Rose up 1-0. And then Rose in round 2 was able to land the first takedown, which had Miranda exhausting a lot of energy, just trying to fight away with about a minute left. Rose tried to sink in a rear naked choke or kind of like a face crank. And somehow Miranda is just so powerful, was able to reverse out of that and get on top of Rose to end the round. But Rose dominated the round. I had her going up 2-0 into the third. So Miranda definitely went for broke in round 3 to get a takedown and didn't have any luck. Once Rose defended, she came forward swinging and almost knocked out Miranda. She had a beautiful left hook, and then after that was able to control Miranda for majority of the round. Again, I'm really questioning how people had thought Rose lost this fight. I had scored all 3 of them to Rose. Statistically, Rose landed 46 total strikes, 25 of them significant. She had 2 takedowns in 4 attempts, the knockdown, and 6 minutes and 33 seconds of control time. Miranda landed 52 strikes, so 6 more, 25 significant as well. She was 0 for 2 in takedowns, a submission attempt, a reversal, and a minute and 48 seconds of control time. So Rose starts back a new winning streak at flyweight. She's 3-2 since 2023. She stays at 7 in the rankings. And Miranda ends her 4-fight winning streak. She starts a new losing streak. She's 4-2 since 2023. She stays at number 11 in the rankings. And after the fight, she got up gimpy. Something must have happened in that grappling exchange in round 3. She ended up confirming she tore her ACL. So where do we book these ladies? Well, I would like to see Rose and Macy Barber. It's a fight up in the rankings. That's probably not going to happen with Macy's health. So I'm going to say Rose and the hot Jasmine Jazdavicius, who's on a roll. And for Miranda, how about Wang Kong, who's new to the top 15? And that set us up for a main event, which I really didn't know how it would play out with Usman on the shelf for so long. But Kamaru Usman got the unanimous decision over Joaquin Buckley. Fight of the night, 50 Gs. And for this to be fight of the night, it just kind of explains how the card went. I mean, credit to Kamaru. For all the time off, he went back to vintage wrestling Usman, which was definitely the smart game plan here to get back on track. And every time Buckley tried to walk up by the cage after being taken down, Usman would just pull his hips back and smother him where he couldn't get up to his feet. There was definitely a lot of solid ground and pound round by round through Usman. And Buckley was the much quicker striker when they were standing. You know, he was very bouncy and firing away to start the rounds, but eventually Kamaru would get the takedown and control him. As the rounds went by, each round it took a little bit longer and longer, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to get the takedown. And Buckley did land some good shots as he was just too quick for Usman. But then in round 5, Buckley really got after it, gave himself a shot at Usman, who was pretty gassed out, understandably, and was sluggish. He seems kind of slow moving in and out. He is able to take some punches, but, that makes you question what would be next with him with some of the top fighters in the welterweight division. But since Buckley couldn't get the finish, he was going to lose on the scorecards. And Usman, for the most part, was just able to keep Buckley down like a sack of potatoes and regain the position to rain down some ground and pound over and over. And you can see Buckley's face pretty beat up by the end of the fight. And the stats speak for the lopsidedness. Kamaru landed 137 total strikes, 41 of them significant. He had 4 takedowns, although 13 attempts. And he had 12 minutes and 57 seconds of control time. So not a great percentage of takedowns, but he did get one each round, 1 through 4. And Joaquin landed 51 total strikes, 44 of them significant. So Kamaru ends that 3-fight winning streak. He starts a new winning streak, his first since November of 2021. He stays at 5 in the rankings. And Joaquin ends a 6-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. He stays at number 7. What an awesome moment after the fight. Kamaru on the microphone talking about getting that monkey off his back. He's the boogeyman of the division. He's still here. All the people talking shit about his bad knees, keep talking that shit. He could wrestle. He could do it all. I mean, the guy is an absolute unit, and the fact that he could still fight at this level, tip of the cap to you, Kamaru Usman. But what's next? I know, probably one of the more dominant welterweight champions of all time, him and GSP. He has lofty goals. He wants to fight for titles and wants to go challenge DDP up at the next division. I think he's going to have to fight Bilal Muhammad next, if you ask me. He's the number 1 contender. I know Kamaru would rather wait for the title, but that, his division's title's not even booked yet. He'd probably sit out another year, and I just don't think that makes sense for him. And for Buckley, I think a matchup with Leon Edwards is in store, and I'm here for it. But yeah, overall, just a weird night in Atlanta. I would expect some differences this Saturday, UFC Fight Night Baku. The fighters are already there. Seems like there's no issues with what's happening with Iran and Israel in the Middle East. So fingers crossed, all goes good there. His Baku is pretty close to the bordering countries. But we have the prelims at 9 p.m. Pacific on ESPN2. The main card at 12 p.m. Pacific on ABC. Got local UFC action here on the West Coast. Get to wake up again, get that coffee, Irish coffees, whatever you need to get the fights rocking. So some good fights we will not break down. We have Icon alum Hamdi Abdul Wahab taking on Ultimate Fighter alum Muhammad Usman. We have Jungyeon Park taking on Brave alum Ismail Nardiev. And then we have Oban Elliott taking on Contender Series alum Seok-Hyun Ko. To preview this card overall, I would say there's obviously clearly a lot of foreign fighters as expected, and really only one good fight on the prelims, but there is some good names that should dominate, like Jungyeon Park. That's why I'm not breaking down his fight. Oban Elliott. But the main card looks like it's going to be grappling heavy like Atlanta turned out to be. But a lot of value on this card is the co-main and main event, which should be very violent kickboxing showdowns. Plus, I'm really excited to see Tofik Musayev's UFC debut as well. Again, I saw him in person in Bellato in Tacoma, Washington. He's a very fun kickboxer. I am going to preview this card a 7 out of 10. Definitely worth tuning into. So let's kick it off with one prelim fight. We have Tagir Ulanbekov, 33 years old with a 16-2 record and the number 12 next to his name, taking on Azat Quazag Maksum, 30 years old with a 17-1 record. Now, I was really excited for the original fight. It was supposed to be Tagir and Kyoji Horiguchi's return in the UFC, but we get Tagir in a fantastic matchup, that would have been a fantastic matchup, but now we get Azat on short notice, who's looking to rebound from a loss against Charles Johnson early last year. Breaking this one down, Tagir has a Sambo style. He trains out of AKA, hybrid of Eagles MMA. He won gold in the 2014 World Combat Sambo Championships. He's a Fight Night Global alum and former champion. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. 8 of his 16 wins are via submission. Now, Azat is an Octagon and Brave alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's an even 1-1 in the UFC. 5 of his 15 wins are via submission, 4 via knockout, so 9 of his 15 wins via finish. Now, at the end of the day, Tagir is very experienced. He's good everywhere. I think he may even have the striking advantage in this fight, but I do expect him to look for takedowns early and often. You know, both men are in their primes at 33 and 30. So I do think this is more of a must-win for Tagir as he looks to try to get quality opponents while he's still in his prime. You take a loss here, you're definitely in a bad position. For that reason, I'm taking Tagir Ulanbekov. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main card. We have Muhammad Hilman Naimov, 30 years old with a 12-3 record, taking on Bogdan the Unleashed Grad, 29 years old with a 15-2 record. Now, both of these fighters are starting to come onto the scene and are just hitting their primes to put on a show on the main card on ABC. Now, Muhammad has been active. He's already had some quality wins like Nathaniel Wood, and this is Bogdan's only second UFC post-Dana White Contender Series. Breaking it down, Muhammad has a Taekwondo style. He trains at an Elevation Fight Team. He's a Titan FC Dana White Contender Series and Tough Enough alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 5-1 since 2023, and 6 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, Bogdan is a Dana White Contender Series alum. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 2-0 in the UFC, and 9 of his 15 wins are via knockout. Now, Bogdan definitely is probably feeling himself right now. He's getting a jump in competition after getting a second-round finish in February. But Muhammad's a very well-rounded fighter. I expect him to mix in a lot of wrestling here, which I think will be too much for Grad, and it's definitely going to be a grinded-out fight. I am taking Muhammad Naimov. We're putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Nazim Black Wolf Sadiqov, 31 years old with a 10-1 record, taking on Nicholas Iron Moda, 32 years old with a 15-5 record. Now, Nazim hasn't actually suffered a loss in the UFC yet. He's coming off a massive round 1 TKO over Ismail Bonfim, a very quality fighter. And Nicholas Moda isn't known to be down to clang and bang. Or he is known to be down to clang and bang. That's to say the least. So I do expect this fight to be a ton of fun. Both of these men in their primes, 31, 32. This is a big stage for them. Nazim, he's also from Baku, Azerbaijan, so a little bit of hometown crowd here, which I think that does play a big part in some of the decisions overseas, sadly. But breaking it down, Nazim is a Ring of Combat, Cage Fury, Fury FC, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 9-fight winning streak, although he had a draw. 7 of his 10 wins are via knockout, and he has a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Nicholas trains out of Extreme Couture. He's an Ultimate Fighter Brazil, Cage Fury, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's 2-1-1 since 2023. 10 of his 15 wins are via knockout, and 4 of his 5 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now again, Nazim in his home turf, I expect him to be very aggressive. I expect this to be a wild and high-paced fight, so don't blink. I do think Nazim has more paths to victory. He is more of a technical fighter. For that reason, I'm taking the Black Wolf. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Tofik Musayev, 35 years old, taking on Miktabek Oralbay, 27 years old with a 13-2-1 record. Now, Tofik is legit from Azerbaijan, which is cool. Again, I saw him knock out Sydney Outlaw at Bellator 283 in Tacoma, Washington. I've been a big fan ever since. He's a very dangerous fighter on his feet. He has big wins in Rizin and Bellator. He's at the edge of his prime and 35 years old and finally getting a chance on the biggest stage in the UFC. Now, Miktabek seemed to be a wrecking ball in the division until he ran into Matushra Becky in his last fight, which was an absolute war. But it's striker versus grappler for the most part here. Breaking this down, Tofik is a Rizin alum. He's a former lightweight Grand Prix champion and Bellator alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 2-1 since 2023. 18 of his 22 wins are via knockout, and 3 of his 5 losses are via submission. Definitely plays into Oralbay's favor. Now, Oralbay is an LFA alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's 2-1 in the UFC, and he has a 5-inch reach advantage. 6 of his 13 wins are via knockout, 5 via submission, so 11 of his 13 wins via finish. Now, there is a chance Miktabek has his way with Tofik by taking him down and controlling him. You know, Tofik's been fighting in Rizin. He's been kickboxing the shit out of his opponents, and he hasn't had to face many grappling-heavy fighters. I'd like to think Tofik knows how much is on the line here. He's been prepping his takedown defense, probably putting in a lot of kicks to keep Oralbay at bay and keep the fight on the feet. I do think Tofik's quicker and more talented than Miktabek. This should be another fun war. And the way Runbeki had defeated Oralbay, I think Tofik could beat him with that style as well. So as long as Musayev doesn't get taken down multiple times and held down, I think he's the victor. For that reason, I am taking Tofik Musayev, but I am not putting him on any parlays. The dog's coming to eat. Ho, ho! Then probably the weirdest booked fight. I mean, the UFC has these sometimes. You have to have them sometimes. But we get Curtis Razor Blades, 34 years old with an 18-5-1 record and the number 5 next to his name, taking on Rizvan Kuniev, 32 years old with a 12-2-1 record. Now, I'm not going to act like I know a ton about Rizvan, but I'm pretty positive he's going to struggle going from Contender Series to Curtis Blades in his prime. Curtis has solid hands, but his grappling at heavyweight is the top shelf. So Kuniev has a ton to take on here. Again, I don't know why this fight was booked, but the UFC must be high on Kuniev, or absolutely nobody wants to take a fight with Blades. This was originally booked for February, then it was rebooked for March, but Curtis got sick, so it's finally happening this weekend. So to keep in consideration, it has been a long fight camp for both of these men. We'll see how that affects them. Breaking it down, Curtis trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He has a JUCO wrestling background out of Northern Illinois University and Harper College, where he won the championship in 2012. He has the most takedowns landed in UFC heavyweight division history with 62. He has the most control time in UFC heavyweight history at 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 6 seconds. He has the most top position time in UFC heavyweight history, 1 hour, 6 minutes. He has the most takedowns in a fight in UFC heavyweight history. He had 14 against Alexander Volkov. He's an RFA alum. He's on a one-fight losing streak and is 1-2 since 2023. 13 of his 18 wins are via knockout, and all 5 of his losses are also via knockout. Life in the heavyweight, to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Rizvan is an Eagles FC, PFL, and Contender Series 2-time alum. He's only 1-0-1 since 2023, although he should be 0-2 because he had a loss overturned in the PFL. He's also tested positive for something and been out on the shelf for a while. But 6 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, typically you could find an explanation of maybe why this fight's being booked, but this one's difficult to kind of put a finger on. If they didn't give Rizvan a UFC contract after getting a third-round finish in his first Contender Series fight back in 2021, why would they all of a sudden streamline him against a top 5 opponent? I guess we're going to find out. Not only that, but he was also having the fight moved twice. They stuck with it, so they really want it to happen. Now, I just think Curtis Blaydes is too much of a high-level fighter all around for Kuniev. For that reason, I'm taking Curtis Blaydes. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Hafel Ataman Fiziev, 32 years old with a 12-4 record and the number 11 next to his name, taking on Ignacio La Huala Bahamondes, 27 years old with a 17-5 record. I can't wait for this fight. This is such a fun, stylistic fight that is guaranteed violence, fireworks, crazy kickboxing combinations, and a mix of power and speed. You know, Ignacio is only 27. He's almost 28, but he isn't even in his prime window yet and is getting a big jump after 3 consecutive finishes and wins over the likes of Jalen Turner and Manuel Torres. Rafael is kind of in no man's land in the lightweight division. There was even a rumor of him changing weight classes. He's lost to Justin Gaethje twice and Mateusz Gamrot. But don't get it twisted. Fiziev is in his prime. He's getting a full fight camp, which he didn't in his last Gaethje fight. He seems to be fully healthy. He is an absolute problem as a striker. He's probably one of the more technical strikers in all of the UFC. Breaking this down, Rafael has a Muay Thai style. He trains at a Tiger Muay Thai and Kill Cliff FC. He has a blue belt in BJJ. He won bronze in the 2016 World Muay Thai Championships. I mean, he shows out, man. 7 of his last 8 fights have been Performance of the Night or Fight of the Night. He was the 2021 Breakout Fighter of the Year. He's a Titan FC alum. He's on a 3-fight losing streak and is 1-3 since 2022. 8 of his 12 wins are via knockout, and 2 of his 4 losses are also via knockout. So again, to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Ignacio has a kickboxing style. He trains out of Valley Flow Striking. He trains with Bilal Muhammad and Jessica Pena. All 3 of his last fights have been Performance of the Night. He's on a roll. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's on a 3-fight winning streak and is 4-1 since 2023. 11 of his 17 wins are via knockout, and he has a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, the big challenge for Rafael is going to be that length advantage. So he's going to have to be careful closing distance to let his beautiful kicks and combos go to work. Now, Fiziev, although is a shorter fighter, he's really good in the clinch as well, which Ignacio likes to use. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that happens. But we will know there will be a ton of kickboxing. Again, I am so excited for this fight, but I just don't see how Ignacio wins this fight unless he could stay at kicking range and outpoint Fiziev on the scorecards. For that reason, I'm taking the underdog, the dogs coming to eat. Hoo hoo! I'm taking Fiziev. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. That's going to be one hell of a fight. Speaking of violence, it's guaranteed in the main event. We have Khalil Roundtree Jr., 35 years old with a 14-6-1 record and the number 4 next to his name, taking on Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill, 34 years old with a 12-3-1 record and the number 7 next to his name. I know the odds have changed on this fight a lot. I want to see what the new odds are right now. Jamal was the favorite early. I think it's pretty much an even fight now. Minus 110. Yep, pretty much an even fight. Now this is, of course, a big boy showdown. Jamal is looking to regain some respect on his name after being finished in back-to-back fights. Before that, he had 3 finishes in his last 4 fights. Khalil, I feel like, fights a lot more technically and is lighter on his feet with amazing clinch game and kick game, which I think is the biggest difference here. But breaking it down, sorry, give me 1 minute here. So Khalil is a southpaw fighter. He trains out of Syndicate MMA. He's also trained out of Tiger Muay Thai. He's an Ultimate Fighter alum, an RFA alum. He has the most knockdowns landed in a UFC light heavyweight bout, which he had 4 against Eric Anders. He's on a 1-fight losing streak, but he is 3-1 since 2023. 9 of his 13 wins are via knockout, and 3 of his 6 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now Jamal, he has a brown belt in BJJ. He's a former light heavyweight champion. He's the first Contender Series alum to be an undisputed UFC champion. He has the most significant strikes landed in a UFC light heavyweight bout, which was 232 against Glover Teixeira. He has the most distant strikes landed in a UFC light heavyweight bout, 188 against Glover Teixeira. He has the most significant head strikes landed in a UFC light heavyweight bout, 180, also in that war against Glover Teixeira. He's a Dana White Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's 1-2 since 2023. 7 of his 12 wins are via knockout, and all 3 of his losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Khalil's last fight against Alex Pereira, it was a beatdown. And he could take the soul of, Poatan with that stone hand could take the soul out of a man. But if you know Roundtree's story, I think it just makes him get that much better. And I do think a 5-round fight is more of his style against Jamal. Jamal in his war with Glover Teixeira showed that he has the grit and cardio to go deep in fights, which he hasn't had to do a lot. And he also showcased the ability to mix in grappling, which could be a big advantage if he chooses to do so. We haven't had to see Khalil deal with grappling, but I have a feeling Jamal is just going to see red and swing for the fences in this showdown anyways. Both men are at the edge of their primes. They need a win to stay at the top of the light heavyweight division, especially for Jamal, who's on a skid. But this fight has the potential to be done quick or be fight of the year. I'm excited, but I'm taking Khalil Roundtree Jr. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Early morning Saturday, ABC. The main event is bonkers. The co-main event is even more insane. Curtis Blades is back. Tofik Musayev's debut. A couple local Baku guys, Nazim Siddiqov and Muhammad Naimov, as well as Tagir Ulanbekov. I'm excited for it. But then we go back to Vegas for a stacked International Fight Week card. UFC 317. We got 2 belts on the line. The interim lightweight championship, where the number 3 Ilia Topuria takes on number 2 Charles Oliveira, and the flyweight strap, where Alexandre Pantoja tries to defend against 4th-ranked Kai Kara France. That's episode 103. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.